ReZero's first arc is a concise 3 episodes that ends with a climactic showdown. Arc 2 is a hefty 8 episodes, and compared to the high-octane spectacle that concluded the last arc, it's a bit slower. Okay, it's a lot slower. It's the arc of ReZero that some people consider the boring one, because there's a decent amount of characters talking in rooms before it delivers a more action-oriented climax. Even some of the comments on my last video said they preferred Arc 1 and ranked Arc 2 the lowest. That was a surprise to me, because I love this arc, and it's here where it started to sink in for me that this series was something special. While I didn't quite know how special it was going to be, this was when the picture started to get clearer, and the potential this story offered really dawned on me. The first arc piqued my interest. The second arc showed me I was right to keep watching. There's a lot to Subaru's chaotic week at the mansion that I think people tend to overlook or even misunderstand. So I want to shine a light on some of the hidden depths of this arc that captivated me. Like my Arc 1 analysis, this video is focused on the invisible ink of the narrative, the writing below the surface of the words. ReZero's mansion arc accomplishes everything a second arc should. It introduces new, multifaceted characters, deftly uses subtext to endue the character interactions with deeper meaning, uses its story engine to force Subaru to change, builds up the lie at the core of his beliefs, and expands the scope of its story and world. Part 1. Characters. Arc 2 introduces the series' most iconic characters. You may have heard of ReZero's characters being described as complex and three-dimensional before, but what does that even really mean? Well, we understand a character is multifaceted when a contradiction is revealed between the way they present themselves and the way they truly are. Screenwriting expert Robert McKee calls this the revelation of true character. People are not what they appear to be. A hidden nature waits concealed behind a facade of traits. Major characters cannot be at heart what they seem to be at face. Beatrice presents herself as an apathetic, antisocial shut-in, but that's not who she is on the inside. Deep down, she craves connection. That's why, despite constantly pushing Subaru away, often quite literally, she's quick to abandon her library and uphold a contract with him when his life is in danger. That's her true character. Rom has a sharp tongue and abrasive attitude, and spends most of the time picking on Subaru. But at heart, she's really the kinder and more compassionate of the twins. She helps Subaru learn to write, quietly looks out for him, and spares him from prolonged suffering. Rem acts as the reserved, dutiful maid with extreme loyalty and admiration for her sister, but deep inside, she's emotionally volatile and deeply insecure. In a moment of weakness, she was happy that Rom lost her horn, and her diligence and loyalty derive from feeling guilt over that. It's Subaru's awareness of their depth that drives him to save them. The girls who treated him so coldly were also the ones who held his hands to comfort his screams. He glimpsed that they weren't at heart what they seemed to be at face, same as we did. While to a much smaller extent, we even get a slimmer of this with Roswell. He acts aloof, eccentric, and has a laissez-faire attitude about what goes on in his mansion. But in the final loop, he suddenly claims he has an important meeting to attend, and delivers an order to Subaru with an out-of-character seriousness. It's our first peek under the hood that there's more to Roswell than he lets on. On top of that, there's another great trick ReZero uses on its characters, making them mirrors of the protagonist, or in the words of McDonald of Invisible Ink, clones. Clones are characters in your story that represent what could, should, or might happen to your protagonist if they take a particular path. We get 2 great examples of clones in this arc with Beatrice and Rem. Beatrice is a shut-in, literally in her own world, a pocket dimension isolated from others. It isn't hard to draw a parallel to Subaru, who we're told isolated himself back on Earth, cooped up in his own room. And that isolation is something he struggles with here in the mansion, too. Rem is defined by her insecurities, feeling like a failure compared to her sister. Subaru, likewise, is someone very insecure, constantly surrounded in his life by people he perceives as more talented and capable than him. Rem is Subaru if he let those insecurities consume him. To hit that home even further, we later find out in the 4th arc that Subaru lived in the shadow of his father, just as Rem did with Rom. And yes, Roswaal turns out to be the biggest clone of them all, but we don't get any idea of that here in Arc 2, so I won't be going over that yet. ReZero makes great use of clones because it allows the lessons Subaru learns to affect them as well. Rem's arc becomes a reflection of Subaru's, but more on that in a bit. Both of these writing techniques make ReZero's characters shine and feel fleshed out, even in this early arc. Part 2. Subtext. In a well-written story, every scene, even scenes where nothing is happening, should be telling us something. While Arc 2 has a lot of dialogue scenes, none of the conversations are inane. Instead, they're practically dripping with subtext. As Robert McKee concisely explains, subtextual levels enclose the hidden life of characters' thoughts and feelings, desires and actions, both conscious and unconscious, the unsaid and the unsayable. Here's a small example. While doing yard work, Rem glares at Subaru, causing Rom to interrupt and suggest tidying up Subaru's hair. Rem looks surprised at first, but then plays along, volunteering to give him a haircut and going on about how she's extremely bothered by his hair. On surface level, Rem and Rom are talking about a haircut, but they aren't actually talking about a haircut. They're talking about how Rem wants to torture and murder Subaru, something they obviously can't openly discuss in front of him. We can tell Rem is the one overcome by her emotions, while Rom is the pragmatic one. It's emblematic of how they act when the torture takes place, with Rem getting carried away in anger, while Rom is the one to intervene and put Subaru out of his misery. Here's a bigger one. Subaru tells Rom a classic Japanese fable, the Red Oni who cried. The Red Oni wants to befriend the village people, but can't find a way to approach them without scaring them off. His friend, the Blue Oni, stages an attack so that the Red Oni can save the humans and win their trust. The Red Oni is then accepted by the villagers, but at a cost. The Blue Oni leaves, knowing that their friendship would only cause the villagers to distrust the Red Oni. Keep in mind that at this point in the arc, Subaru has no idea that Rem and Rom are Oni, and neither do we as the audience. Even so, we learn a lot about Rom based on her responses to this story. Rom says all the characters are stupid, summarizing them as the Red Oni who can only wish to be taken care of by others, and the Blue Oni basking in his own self-sacrifice. She's not really talking about the fairy tale characters, she's talking about herself and her sister. Rom says she thinks it's the Red Oni who's beyond help for dragging down the Blue Oni and losing nothing, while the Blue Oni is the only one who really lost anything in the story. Her interpretation of the story shows us that Rom blames herself for Rem's pitiful state, something she's deeply regretful of. Look at how much we learned about Rom's perspective on her and her sister without her ever mentioning anything directly. The scene communicates the shameful, unsayable thoughts and feelings that Rom harbors. It's great stuff, but we don't just learn about Rom in this exchange either. When she asks which of the two Oni he'd rather be friends with, Subaru chooses both. This tells us a lot about Subaru. He's the kind of person that refuses to settle with a bad outcome. He rejects the binary and forges his own path, something we see him put into practice later in the arc. Of course, subtext isn't restricted only to dialogue. The subtext of the bath scene, for example, is pretty obvious. Roswaal casually hangs dong right in front of Subaru's face and then makes a remark about owning Subaru. Then Subaru steps out of the room, only to get embarrassed when one of the girls sees him naked and insults his, sorry thing. So what's the meaning of the scene beyond being a funny gag? It's to convey Subaru's feeling of inferiority. The scene communicates to the audience that he feels emasculated without ever having to say those words out loud. Hey, no one said subtext had to be subtle. Part 3. The story engine in action. Arc 2 moves the story to a new location with new cast members, and delivers a take on the classic mansion murder mystery whodunit, but with a twist. Subaru is the one investigating his own murder. That said, it still uses the same story engine we saw in Arc 1, and to great effect. Last time, I went over the concept of a story engine, a repeatable formula that allows writers to continuously produce new episodes or story arcs from a central premise, and I came up with this for ReZero's story engine. In a fantasy world, Natsuki Subaru is trapped in a cycle where he dies and restarts repeatedly, learning more information in each loop in order to progress. The cycle is broken when Subaru grows emotionally enough to overcome the obstacles he faces, and gains a greater understanding of the world around him. Let's take a look at how it's applied in this arc. Subaru has a goal. He needs to make it to the end of the week to have his date with Amelia. However, he's caught in a loop where he keeps dying and restarting, either falling victim to a curse or being murdered at the hands of Rem. He only makes it out by changing some aspects of himself and learning about the people around him. The key concept here is genuineness. Subaru has to learn to genuinely see and understand others, and he has to learn to be more genuine himself. When he arrives at the mansion, Subaru is pretty dismissive of everyone he meets, calling Beatrice an NPC, assuming Roswell is a hired clown, and referring to Rem and Rom as tropes. He sees the whole thing like a game. He's not malicious about it, as Puck points out, but he's not seeing or treating these people like real people, and he acts very self-assured, thinking he has them all figured out already. He remarks that in these looping plots, all you gotta do is follow the same path and you'll end up in the same place. But he quickly finds out that isn't true, because these people aren't as predictable as he thinks. Over the course of the arc, he stops viewing the situation as a game filled with NPCs or a prescripted path he can follow to get the results he wants. He has to understand these are real people, just like himself. Return by Death allows him to see other sides to them that he normally wouldn't. Note how it's the empathy he demonstrates with the village children that stops Rem from being suspicious of him. He knows their names and lists out all their wants and desires, clearly showing he understands them on a deeper level at this point. Rem made assumptions about the kind of person Subaru was, essentially doing to him the same thing we've come to understand that he was doing to everyone else in the beginning of the arc. His arc then influences Rem's arc, and she becomes receptive to understanding him as a person. At the beginning, Subaru's attempts to communicate and befriend others only results in suspicion of him. He comes on far too strong in these early loops, confusing people or turning them off. Return by Death is the embodiment of that difficulty in communication. He literally can't speak about it, and his interactions getting reset is a barrier that prevents him from making any social progress. Instead of wearing a mask and retreating into an exaggerated persona as he has a tendency of doing, Subaru has to actually communicate his real feelings. In the final loop, he breaks down crying with Amelia and is emotionally honest. That display of vulnerability changes everything. Rem's arc echoes this too. She was isolated and closed herself off, and dealt with issues by trying to take them on entirely on her own. That should sound familiar. The main thing both Subaru and Rem learn is that you have to open yourself up to genuine connections. Same as before, even though we get change, not all of Subaru's flaws are resolved, and they'll continue throughout the series. Here, Subaru finds it easy to lecture Rem on relying on others, but it'll take some learning before he finally grasps that as well. But that's the point. Change, but not complete change, because then the series would be over. Arc 2 is another great application of the same story engine we saw in Arc 1, once again proving how solid of a story engine ReZero has, enabling many different types of stories without deviating from its central premise. Part 4. The Lie. At the center of every great character arc is a lie, and Subaru is no exception. As K.M. Weiland writes, your character is harboring some deeply held misconception about either himself, the world, or probably both. In some instances, it may start out seeming to be a strength, but as the story progresses, it will become his Achilles heel. While Subaru has many misconceptions that are challenged over the course of the different arcs, there's one overarching one that's instrumental to his character. The lie Subaru believes is that his life is only worth something when used to save others. ReZero is one of those instances where it starts out seeming like a strength, and that's one of the key purposes of Arc 2. Subaru throws his life away to create a better timeline, and it works. We're cheering when he takes his fate into his own hands and jumps off a cliff to his death. We start to believe the lie too, that self-sacrifice is the means of reaching the best outcome. And we're not really thinking about the downsides to that notion. Arc 2 is cleverly deceptive in that way. Because he's successful here in saving Rem and Rom, the arc builds up self-sacrifice as a viable strategy, both in the eyes of Subaru and the audience. It takes until Arc 4 when this is challenged, when Subaru gets a glimpse of the possible timelines where his friends react to his deaths, and he learns to value his own life more. This is part of why the first 4 arcs tell a cohesive, self-contained story. By building up the lie, Arc 2 is essential in Subaru's overall journey throughout the series. Part 5. The World. ReZero's Arc 2 accomplishes what the second act of a story, or second installment of a saga, is supposed to do: develop the characters, conflicts, and world. I've already gone over how it fleshed out its expanded cast of characters, so let's go over the depths it added to the conflicts and world. In the very first episode of the arc, Subaru is told about the mysterious death of Lagunica's royal family, the creation of a council of wise men, and the ensuing royal selection, of which Amelia is involved. Later, when Rem tortures Subaru, she suspects him of being a member of the witch cult. We don't get much more information on what they are, but we do see them in the flashback to Rem and Rom's village attack. Both the royal selection and the witch cult become central to the conflicts in the following arcs, with the seeds planted here. The storybook Subaru learns to read from contains passages about the divine dragon, who created a covenant with Lagunica. The book also lets us know more details about the Witch of Envy, Satella, who apparently consumed half the world. While the dragon hasn't come up much since then, the witch certainly has, being one of the most important characters and casting a shadow over the entire series. This arc also adds more fuel to the unexplained connection between Subaru and Satella. When he tries to let others know about his ability to return by death, he receives punishment in the form of a shadowy hand reaching inside and grabbing his heart. Rem remarks that he emanates the witch's scent, which only intensifies in those attempts to speak about return by death. The world's magic system gets a detailed explanation from Puck, as he teaches Subaru about mana, gates, and the different magic types one can use. Although it seems like nothing more than a gag at first, Subaru breaking Beatrice's door crossing by always picking the right door might have more to it. We found out he's attuned to shadow magic, which is the same kind of magic that Beatrice is using to create the spell. Later in the series, Julius remarks that Subaru has a high affinity for spirits, which Beatrice is. One or both of these could be the reason he effortlessly finds Beatrice every time. None of this is stated directly, and it's up to the viewer to make these connections on their own, but it adds some depth to the door-crossing joke that you might pick up on rewatch. And what do you know, that shadow magic is the same that Subaru feels when the witch grabs his heart. How interesting. Additionally, circling back to Roswaal leaving on the final loop, his behavior makes sense with the later reveal that he's aware of Subaru's looping power. It makes it clear in retrospect that he's leaving because events have progressed in accordance with the correct path laid out in his gospel. It's another brief moment that's much more relevant on rewatch. What's really noteworthy is how all of this is doled out, because Arc 2 expertly spreads all this information across the many different loops Subaru goes through. This helps make each loop feel unique and not repetitive, and it prevents any single loop from becoming an exposition dump. It all feels organically integrated. At its core, ReZero is a mystery story, and Arc 2 takes the time to properly flesh out that mystery. answering many questions about the world and raising a hell of a lot more to keep you engaged. Conclusion. In Arc 2, everything slows down just enough for us to really see what kind of series this is. One that's surprisingly thoughtful and emotional. While some might complain about the slower pace, every small moment and quiet interaction is loaded with meaning. In the next arc, we see everything get turned on its head, but Arc 2 is a solid, well-written follow-up to the first arc that deepens pretty much everything. If you thought Arc 2 was the most boring because there was a lot of talking, well, I hope you came away with this with some new appreciation for it. Let me know if I should keep this up and do one of these on Arc 3, which would most likely be a close analysis of the story structure in particular, going into each act and how it hits all the right beats for a powerful story. But before that, I'll be making a video on either Cyberpunk or Evangelion. My poll's looking pretty neck and neck at the moment, so we'll see. Live strong, okay?